Hello everyone, hi there, I hope you're well. I hope you're having a good weekend and welcome to Sunday. So yesterday and the day before we created a couple of cards. So I created the honesty card using the seed pods, and then I used the background. So that's the first generation background, that was the second generation background from the gel press, and I created these two cards. So this was the one yesterday, this is the one the day before, and if you watch this first video you will see how we made the backgrounds. They were all on 4x6" pieces of Pink Frog super smooth card, 300 GSM 4x6, and I really love how those have turned out. Now whilst we were creating those backgrounds on the gel press, the one thing that we did, or I did, was I braided whatever little bit of ink was on the background, sorry, that was on my brayer, I braided off onto a spare piece. So I've got this piece of 4x6" super smooth card that I've braided just tiny bits of ink that were left over onto my card, and it was whatever was left. And then I just flicked some water on there, and that's the background that I've got. So let's do something with that background. I've got no idea where I'm going, but what I thought I'd do is sort of mix new and old. So I'm going to take the Abutalon stamps, and it's got a lovely floral, it's got the Abutalon, I just love it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this, let's just put this here, excuse me, I'm going to take this floral here, can't speak, and it's up to you. All these stamps are so well used that they're falling off, which is not a problem. You can just wipe excuse me, you can just wipe the back of your stamp, or you can give it a little wash and then it's sorted. It'll just re-stick. But you'd be surprised with your fingers and everything else on the back of there, you'd be surprised what grubbiness there is on there, and it just re-sticks. It's just wonderful. So I'm just going to decide which way I want the floral. Which way do I want the floral now? Am I going to have it that way, or am I going to turn it round? This is what I do, because this floral can be used anyway, any which way I want to. So I'm just having a look at the way I want to use it. So where's that? So, of course, I'm going to spend forever just deciding where I want to add this floral, and it really doesn't matter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp it in my Morning Mist VersaFine Clear ink. So let's just take, and I haven't checked whether I've got a mask of this stamp, very naughty of me, but we'll have a look. So I'm just giving that a really good inking. I've still got bits of paper and cotton from the previous project because Tracy hasn't tidied up. Naughty. Do I want it that way, or do I want it that way, or where's my acetate? Do you like how I just can't make my mind up which way I want it? I think I want, that's why I like looking at the acetate, because I like to decide. And you do know I'm going to give it another inking now, because I'm just faffing. Hey, it's important which way I have my floral, you know. It isn't really, it just doesn't matter. So I'm going to add that there. And I've now got that in the way. So I'd got my, that's why I always say it's good to work on a clear desk, because I had my stamp packaging in the way then on the left hand side, and I couldn't press on the stamp. So you need to be aware of that. So just take your time. Just give that time to sort of absorb onto the surface of the card. There we go, we've got our floral. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to use one of the light bulbs. So I'm going to use SS8. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this, and I don't need to have a mask, because what I'm going to do, she says confidently, I'm just going to use a pencil, and I'm going to have it so that it doesn't matter which way you use the light bulb. Yeah, I think I'll use it that way. Do you like it? Doesn't matter which way you use the light bulb, but you can faff as much as I faff. Honestly, I'm so bad. So I'm just going to draw around the light bulb. And I'm just going to go up to the line. I'm just going to lift this up so that you can see. Not that I can see very well, but I'll just lift this up so that you can see what I've done. So I've just drawn the light bulb, so it comes to the edge here, goes round and comes to the edge there. And then we will add some colouring, etc., like we did yesterday. And you know, I didn't clean, you know when I said to you, oh, you can use this paint that's on your acrylic block and you can sort of spritz it with water or brayer it off onto another card. I didn't. I left it to dry solid on my acrylic block because I got sidetracked on something else. Can't make it up, can you? So I'm going to take some water like we did yesterday. And I'm going to take my sand, exactly like I did yesterday. There's an airlock in that, that's all that was. Then we get, this is the darkest colour, which is blackberry. And then you've got the mid colour, which is bodacious. There we go, a little bit of bodacious. And if I put them there on my non-stick craft sheet, you can just see the amount that I'm using or what I don't need to use. We need a clean piece of kitchen roll. I can't be without a kitchen roll because that allows me just to take off any excess. Oh, I was going to put that onto my kitchen roll then. So let's just turn this around and I'm going to pick up the dark colour. Let me just remove a little bit of the moisture. And now I can see the light bulb and my sort of drawn round that light bulb touch there. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that dark colour. I'm just going to blend that out. I don't know whether I've said enough that I'm enjoying using paints at the moment, but you know, I'll just repeat myself like I do. So I'm just going to go around the floral. And can you see, I don't go too far before I start moving it a little bit, because if you don't, look, that's dry. So you need to make sure that you do move that. But you can see, once it's dried, you can't move it and you've got a solid line. So that's why I do a little bit at a time and then move that out. But don't worry about that line. We can sort that out. Just, so if we work whilst it's wet, it's far easier. You can blend the colour out. So we'll start here and now we'll blend this out a little bit more. Ah, that's better. But look at that. You can't get much easier than that, can you? Just as a start on our light bulb. This floral is beautiful. So we're going to take some of the lighter purple. And again, just work on small areas. Don't try to do too much too soon. Do a little area and then move on to the next. Move a little area and then move on to the next. It's just easier to do a little bit of an area at a time rather than trying to do too much. There we go. Or whatever works for you. A little bit of water there. And now let's rinse that so we haven't got as much purple on there. And then we'll pick up the sand. So we'll work in. I'm going to turn it round now. And we're just going to use that sand. And then just blend that in. Try not to lean in to your paint, which is what I do every single time. And every time you see me go to the kitchen roll, that's when I feel like the paint's flowing too much. I don't want it flowing too much. I don't know what I've said, but you know, this fine brush is a game changer. I don't know whether I've said that or not in the last 25 videos. Now I'm taking the mickey out of myself. Hey, if you can't take the mickey out of yourself. So we've got our first layer of colour. So let's give that a little bit of a rinse. And what we'll do is we'll do the floral now. So a little bit of a thick lump on there. We don't really want a thick lump of paint. And if you watch, you'll see that I won't do the whole flower. I'll go back and blend this out onto the 3 that I've done, because that way you can move the colour. I've just put my hand in there. That way you can move the colour quite easily. But if you let it dry like I showed you before, you're just going to end up with very strong lines. Obviously we can work around that. But I do like to see now my brush is getting a little bit dry. We need a little bit more moisture in there. It's just getting that little bit of moisture just right. So I'm just, I nearly put the card in the paint then. So we'll just go and blend that out. And it's so easy to not talk whilst you're concentrating. See, that one's dried a little bit too much, but we'll work with that, don't worry. So let's just add a little bit down here. We've got another petal. We don't want too much down there. We just want a touch of colour because we want it to be paler down there. And then I can just blend the colour a little bit. So you can see my brush sort of flattens out when I start to blend it with hardly any water. A little bit more on that one. So this is just the rough guide at the moment. We've got work to do with that because that's obviously too blocky, etc. So So we're going to take the second colour. So your darkest colour is blackberry, the mid colour is bodacious, and the light colour is sand. So it doesn't matter where you start. Now, when I'm doing this, you might not see much of a difference on the floral with the two purples, and that's what I'm just checking here. So because there's not that much difference, what I'm going to do, I can see it on here, but I'm going to pick up some of that sand. I'm going to use the sand. And you can use your finger if you're finding that you've got too much of a harsh edge. But again, don't worry about it. We can work with that. But use your finger. It's a really good tool to work with. So at the moment, I'm just laying down sort of a base colour. I'm just going to do these 3 petals here first, just to show you the difference. Right, so we'll work on these 3 here. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to go in a little bit darker. Just to give a little bit more and then doesn't matter that the brush is a little bit as in contaminated, because it will just sort of make it like a pinky browny colour. I'm just going to, let's grab some clean water. When my water gets too contaminated. So I'm just going to go to the second colour. And now I can see a little bit of a difference now. Just sort of blend that out to absolutely nothing. My kitchen roll is invaluable. So I'm sort of putting this base layer of this sand on here. And then when I go to the secondary colour, the second colour purple, the bodacious, it sort of goes to a pinky colour. But try not to work too many areas at once, because you won't get a really nice blend. And you really sort of, you want to get a blend with your paint. So you just want it to blend, and you really sort of get the best blend when the paint is wet. So let's take a little bit of the sand, just as the base colour, can't speak, just so that this lightest colour is at the edge. Then I'll pick up a little bit of the bodacious and then blend that out. So don't try and create a blend with dry paints, because absolutely nothing is going to happen if you try and create that with a dry brush. But I've got a little bit of the sand on there, so it changes that colour of the bodacious a little bit. And then we'll come back in and we will add more of that lighter colour. So pick up a little bit of the sand. Let's pick up a little bit more of that sand. Don't worry if you go over a few lines, you can easily bring some of that back in. So I'm just using a little bit of the bodacious. Tracy can't speak. And I always find it better to layer the colours bit by bit, and then we can dry. Let's just put these lines in here. Where have I gone now? A little bit more darkness. The problem with me is when I'm colouring, I can go over and over and over again. As long as I don't work that card too much, it's just what I do. I just like to just perfect it a little bit more. And we're going to need to dry this so that we can continue to add those layers of paint. That's down to nothing, so let's go pick a little bit of the sand up, a little bit of the purpley colour, and we will come in and add more of the sand shortly. So I've sort of got a base. Oh, I haven't got a colour here. There's quite a few petals on here. You don't realise until you start colouring those in. You don't actually realise how many petals there are. Let's give that a rinse. Pick up a little bit of the bodacious. And now I'm really losing myself now. But there is quite a lot of petal work. So you just take your time. I love it. I love doing it, and I love the background against this rich colour. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give this a dry. I'm not going to sort of, you know, spend ages drying it too much because I don't want the card to bow too much. Just so that I am layering. Let's just turn the kitchen roll over and wipe that moisture up. Then we'll have a little bit more water, and then I'm going to go in and I just want to get the floral right. Oh, I nearly went into the wrong one then. That's why concentrating is usually a good thing. Okay, so I've got the dark on there now. Then I'm going to go to the light and just blend that out. Take off the excess. And just blend that. That's better. Getting and a little bit more depth now. Makes a huge difference. It really does when you sort of dry the layer. It just works so much better. And it's our time to spend together, just so that we can spend a little bit of time, touch base, and just spend a little bit of that time together. So let me just take the excess off there. And this is why the kitchen roll is your best friend. It stops you from adding too much of anything. I'm just going to the secondary colour now. Then going to the dark colour. And I'm making sure I just add a little bit of dark to the edges as well, just down the sides. Tiny bit more moisture and pick up the bodacious. And again, we can just use that kitchen roll just to make sure that we don't add too much. Just blend that and it starts to come alive just before your eyes. A little bit of a lighter colour. And you can see I'm sort of using that paintbrush now, just like you would a pen. Don't forget, if there's something you're not happy with, use your finger just to blend things out a little bit. So I'm just going round and I'm just sort of reiterating some of those darker areas. So if you want some of the lines to be a little bit darker, you can do that. Let's pick a little bit of the bodacious up. And you can easily lighten things because we'll add some of that lighter colour. And I can see which ones I've done now and which ones I haven't done. So just take your time. A little bit more of the lighter colour there. So what I'd do now is I'd give it a dry now at this stage. I know we've got the light bulb to do. Just give this another sort of waft dry. Because we are going to add some of that lighter colour. We will go to the light bulb eventually. But first of all, have a look to see. So pick up some of your darkest colour, which is the blackberry or whichever dark colour you're using, and just see if there's any areas you just want to add a little more touch of darkness. So you might want to add a little bit where the where the lines meet. You might want to make that a little bit darker, just to give a little bit more definition. Obviously we are going to add touches of white as well, but if you just want to add little touches of the dark, just to give a little bit more definition, you can do that. So just adding little bits of darkness. So just see if you want to add any of that before you go back to the light colour. Make sure you're using some clean water, because we're going to the sand. Let's just wipe my brush. So I'm going to pick up the sand now, and then I can go in and just add little touches of the sand. Take the excess off, and then you can just soften the edge of each one. Tiny bit of water, just so that you can soften just the edge of your floral. And you can just sort of dot that on if you wish. And again, you don't have to do this if you don't want. You can just keep that, all that purpley deep winey colour. And again, your finger is a really good tool just to diffuse the edges. But you can see how little paint you use, because you can see what I've got left on my non-stick craft sheet. But I do just like adding that little touch of that colour. We'll let that dry, and what we'll do now is we'll come to the light bulb and we'll add more of that colour. So this has had plenty of time now to rest, just so that I can layer the colour even more. So we'll come round here with the very dark colour, the blackberry. We'll just blend that out. So really adding the darkness now. And whilst that's still wet, just drag that out. So obviously I can use a little bit more paint on the light bulb because it's a larger surface area. So then we'll go to the bodacious. Again, the paint is still wet, so it allows me just to blend. Again, you've got any harsh edges, just make sure that you use your finger. Let's just clean the brush a bit more, and then we'll pick up our sand. And again, whilst it's wet, you can just blend that, and you can use your finger just to diffuse the areas a little bit. A little bit more water. You can see when I need more water because my brush gets a little bit scratchy. You could do this with a sponge, but obviously if you dab it on, you will get some lovely texture, but a totally different look. You won't get sort of a smooth look to your projects. And while it's still got some beige on there, I'm just going to pick up the Bodacious, take off a little bit of moisture, and it's like blending the two colours. And we'll just clean a bit more. There you go, and you come to nothing. And you can just diffuse it a little bit. I just love it when it's a little bit more mottled. Yes, just lovely. So let's just pick this up. And then I'm just going to grab another piece of card. So I've got another piece of 4 by 6 inches, and if I just grab my brayer, so I'll just grab my painty brayer, and we'll just pick these colours up, and we'll add these. Can you see how much they've dried on the non-stick craft sheet? Maybe add a little bit of water just to sort of soften it and blend it a little bit. Look at this now. Maybe a little bit more water. There you go. Keep rolling over, and now you've got a beautiful blend for another card. And that's how it goes on and on, because you can keep adding. I mean, I could pick that up as well on another piece of card. Let's do that. So pick that up on another piece of card. So you're not wasting any of your medium. You're creating more backgrounds. I mean, look at this. So let's dry that. Let's just dry that. Now this, move that out of the way. This is from a bit of paint left over on the non-stick craft sheet. And I like doing things like this. I like showing you how I actually use the backgrounds and that I don't waste them. Look at the medium that's left on the non-stick craft sheet. All that acrylic paint. There we go. Any more? Lovely. So I don't think we've wasted much, do you? Not wasted much at all. So you've then got another background which you could let dry naturally, really. You don't have to dry it like I'm doing. You can let that dry naturally. So then you've got a beautiful blended background and a more mottled background, again from a little bit of a project that you've created just with extra paint that's left over. You've now got 2 more backgrounds, and that's what I love best about when you're creating. It's just such fun. Right, so I'm then going to take, where's my Beauty One stamp? At the top there. So So let's just place the floral back. Like so. And there is sort of smaller versions of this as well. But I might want something coming across here. So I think I'm going to use, where are you? I'm going to use TE3, the fern. So let's use the fern stamp for TE3. And we will use a little bit of grey, and maybe we got a little bit of a purpley colour. So we'll add grey to the fern. So give that, that's the morning mist. And then I'm going to use the monarch that's got a little touch of purple on there. Just add some touches of purple. And then I'm going to add actually, what I'm going to do is faff for England. So we're going to add one there. And then I'm going to add, I've got a separate fern as well. Just add that there. Just lovely. It's got a little bit of purple on there with the grey. Yummy. Right. So I do like it when I'm enjoying myself. And I lose myself. So I'm now going to sort of just add my little wiry thing to here. And then let's grab the outer piece. So let's place that back. So you've got your outer piece as well. That's what I love about the snippet stencils. So we can place that outer piece. Now, if I've dried this enough, then the Posca pen will work rather nicely, because Posca pen works beautifully on acrylic paint. So you can just freehand draw these in if you, oh, I nearly did it then. You can freehand draw them in if you wish. And what I like to do is, as this dries more and more, I will come in and add more details to the light bulb. Oh, just love it. So I'm going to add some touches of white now. There's just something about acrylic paint and using your Posca pens. I love just adding a little bit of this white, just extending over into that floral. Let's just add sort of a little bit down here, as if there's a shine just on the petals. And you can see I'm not pressing too hard with the pen. And I'm very lightly adding some flicks of white just to the floral, just to lift that a little bit more, because it makes me happy. So I'm hardly touching the page. Do you know, I could add touches of white all day long. Just makes me so happy. And then I'm going to add white to the fern as well. I love this floral from the Abutilon. It really gives some drama and to a design. And I do think it's worth just adding those touches of white to your card. So we'll just move the light bulb out of the way, she says. And I want to grab a little bit of text. Of course I want a little bit of text. I always want a little bit of text. And believe it or not, no, that's the wrong one. I'm going to use TE11. Now that's a surprise, isn't it? Not. So let's use TE11. Now what colours have I got? Let me just see. So I'm just going to, I'm not sure what the colours are, so let's just use the back of a piece of card and test them. That's perfect. Let me just look at this colour anyway. I'm going to go for the Hawthorn Rose. That's the one I'm going to use. So let's use the Hawthorn Rose, and we'll add some of our stamping to, oh yes, some of our stamping to the background. Beautiful colour, beautiful colour. So we're just adding some of that Hawthorn Rose. It is Hawthorn Rose, isn't it? Hawthorn Rose. You know when you say something you think, have I said that right? That's it. So I'm just sort of carrying this on. Let's just add a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. So it sort of comes around. Now that won't move because it's a permanent ink pad. Have I got any copy of paper? No. So we'll just give this a dry. And you'll know by now why we're drying that, because we've got that acrylic paint on there, and you've used your Versa Fine Clair ink, which is designed for an absorbent surface. Well, obviously it isn't absorbent because it's got that layer of acrylic on there, but I just give it a dry and a little bit of a blot and it's absolutely fine. I can still see it shining a little bit there. Let me just use my clean kitchen roll just to make sure. There we go. Just lift this up, give that a little bit of a bend. Doesn't that look lovely? Just love it. So shall we add a little bit of shading now? Because you know me by now, I do love a little bit of shading. It makes me happy. So we're going to add a little bit of shading just around the light bulb. And again, I don't need to use much water before that sort of takes effect. And then just the bottom of the floral as well. In fact, there's hardly any moisture on there. It does make me laugh because sometimes I've literally got nothing on there. Just to move that a little bit more, and if you want it a bit darker, just so it moves a little bit more. I'm mad on my acrylic paints at the moment. I just love them. So let's just, and then we'll just give them some splatters. Now, if your Posca pen doesn't start splattering, give that a shake, because it's good for the bingo wings. So give that a shake, and there's my bingo wings shaking. Then lightly press it. Don't break your pen, just lightly press. And then, because you've started the flow of the paint, you don't have to flick too hard for that paint to start flowing. So just press it on your non-stick craft sheet just to get that flowing. Let's just, and I do like to come in, she says, I've got purple paint everywhere. I do like to come in and sort of add another layer of that Posca just to the centre. And then I'm going to decide which word. So let's, I've got things everywhere. Let's place this back. So that was TE11. Love that stamp. And then I'm going to use the TE17, which says free your imagination. Or if I wanted to send it to somebody, what have we got here? Hang on a minute. I've got that many stamps. Might use TE13, Delight in Nature. And that's why I love my stamps so much. I can just pick up one and think, yes, I'll use that. There we go. And TE1 to TE10, I've got 10% off in the shop this weekend. I'm now looking for my black ink pad. There we go. So let's use the Delight in Nature. And then you frantically look for another piece of scrap card that you can't find and you can't pick up out of the drawer. Oh, I just love these colours. There we go. Let's place that back. And I have actually got my stamps in number order, believe it or not. Just so that I can put them back quite easily. Well, that's the plan. Doesn't always work like that. Especially the state my desk gets in. Let's put that in the drawer. If I put everything back straight away, I wouldn't get in such a mess, but you get so engrossed in what you're doing that it doesn't happen like that, does it? Doesn't in my house anyway. Right. I hope you all talk back to me, because I just pretend you're here with me. So we're going to have the Delight, oh, I just love that. Delight in Nature here. And again, if you want to add a little bit of shading, don't forget to do that once it's dry. And of course, you can add your little birds as well, if you wish. I'm just going to add some shading. Again, I don't really need much water. And you can make this as dark or as light as you wish, the actual shading. The shading is an Inktense pencil. It's called China Ink. And as you can see, mine is well used. I have got some more as well, but I just love that. Absolutely love it. Now, let's have a look in there. Yes, that stands out quite nicely. But what you can do is you can, excuse me, just test if it'll stand out a little bit more if you add a little bit of the grey ink just around the edges. Don't forget, it's subtle. You're not sort of overpowering, and don't forget you've got that oxide in the background. So it's going to react with that a little bit, but just putting a little bit of the grey. I can see a little bit of my ink there shining, so just give that a blot. A little bit more grey. Just around the light bulb as well. And it's very subtle, but to the person receiving the card, it's the little touches that really sort of bring everything to life. And by now you don't need me telling you about faffing. And I've sort of got a little subtle shadow around there, and it really works. In real life, it really works. Let's clean that up. Now, because I've added that shadow, I'm just going to add a few more splatters to where the shadow areas are. Now, those shadow areas will be wet, so the Posca pen blends out and gives it another dimension as well. There we go. So that is our card. Now, obviously, I'm asking for trouble a little bit because it's not dry. And that's me all over. Try to stick everything down when it's not dry. So we've worked on a 4 by 6 inch piece of card. And our black mat is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. So what I'm going to do, just to finish off, I'm just going to take the smaller fern and then I'm going to take the monarch. You could use your paint if you wished. I'm just going to add a little bit. That's better. I've definitely got the monarch on there now. That is better. And again, I need to let that dry a bit before I try to add the touches of white. So I'm going to push my luck again, as per normal, and try and stick this down with everything wet. Because I do like you to see a completed card. So let's hold it on one side just to get that sort of right. And if you're worried about getting your hands on everything, you can just use a piece of copier paper just to so that your hands stay clean and you don't smudge your card. I'm going to add my fingers to the middle just to make sure the middle of the card is stuck down, and you can see I'm going round all the edges just to make sure it's stuck down because I've pushed it a little bit with the card curling I haven't put it in between two books or let it dry naturally so that it's flat. There we go. Now let's make sure those hands are clean, which they're definitely not clean because they're covered in white splatters, purple ink, purple paint. I just think that's lovely. So then we'll add that to a 5 by 7 inch card blank. So let's take that. Just make sure so there's not much adhesive left in this, but I keep shaking it, then a bit more comes out. Make sure it's a card that's going to face the right way. Just add that to our card here. Lift that up a little bit. And if you've got a piece that just isn't sticking like there, I will just place a little bit of adhesive underneath. Place that, and that is your card finished, and I absolutely love that. Now what you can do is you can go in again and you can add another layer if you want of your lightest colour. I nearly used the wrong pen then. Or you can just come in with your Posca pen and just go around again with your sort of dashes and touches of white, just to reiterate those lines again. So if you're not happy and it's not quite bright enough, it's quite easy to go back in. I'm actually quite pleased with that. Now the only other thing I've noticed is let's just bring a little bit of shading just around this part of the light bulb. Little bit of water. And just, that's it. Just blend that out. Just so that's a little bit darker. Grab our kitchen roll, and now I'm happy. So I hope you've enjoyed that. It's completely flat apart from the sentiment. So I hope you've enjoyed that demonstration, and I can't wait to see your interpretation. So love to all, have a lovely Sunday, and I'll see you all soon. Now don't forget, when you've finished your card, just to add the touches of white to your fern. Don't forget those finishing touches even when you add something later. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.